Long-term effects of Kamma. The following material on how Kamma bears fruit in the long term, for instance, over many lifetimes, is one part of the description on how the fruits of Kamma affect people's lives. To a large extent, it was covered in the previous section. The reason for distinguishing this material here is because many people show a special interest in this specific matter. Although this matter won't be discussed here at length, it seems useful to offer some observations for the sake of study and contemplation. When either wholesome or unwholesome intention arises in the mind, mental activity begins. The mind operates and is active. We can adopt terms from the material world and refer to this activity as the force of intention. Most people do not understand and are not even interested in how this force of intention operates and what other conditions are involved. They are only interested in the end results of this process. The fruits of intention manifesting in the material world and in human society are clearly visible. There are many examples of how the force of intention manifests in the material world, especially in regard to various inventions and devices, from shoes to spaceships, axes to nuclear bombs, abaci to computers. Other examples include social systems and institutions, including government systems, economic systems, administrative organizations, systemization of work, etc. These systems have a great deal of complexity, indeed the entire process of intention, along with the mechanics of the mind through which intention expresses itself or operates, is highly refined and complex. It is no less complex than the most subtle and refined inventions or systems created by it. Human beings possess ample knowledge about the history and development of various inventions and social systems created by the mind and originating with intention, yet in respect to the nature of the mind and the way in which the mind is conditioned by intention, we possess a distinct lack of understanding. One can say that the workings of the mind remain a great mystery for human beings, even though they affect us directly and exert the greatest influence on our lives. Due to this ignorance, when people encounter phenomena or situations that are the end results of volitional activities, they often have a disjointed understanding of cause and effect. They do not recognize the associated factors involved, or at least not comprehensively, and end up attributing or blaming various other things. Ignorant people do not acknowledge the law of karma, i.e. they do not believe in the law of cause and effect, or in a natural causal process. The refusal to acknowledge the law of karma, or the misplaced blaming of other factors, is then another level of volitional karma, volitional action, karma, which has its own adverse effects, namely one squanders the opportunity to improve oneself and to adapt those methods leading to desired results. More gravely, one may falsely accuse others of collusion or involvement, or perform other actions having more severe consequences. In any case, the Buddha acknowledged that the intricacies of how volitional actions bear fruit is an extremely complex matter, beyond the power of thinking. People are unable to fathom the truth of this matter by way of thought. In the Pali Canon, this matter is classified as achintaya, imponderable, a matter which shouldn't be thought about. If one does not heed this warning and tries to unravel this complexity by thinking, there is a chance of going crazy. This does not mean that the Buddha forbids us to think about the fruits of Kamma. It simply explains that this complexity is inconceivable. It cannot be fully understood by way of reasoning. This matter can be understood, however, by way of realization. Furthermore, the madness ensuing from excessive pondering over this matter is not a punishment laid down by the Buddha. It is simply a natural result of unresolved and confused fretting. Although the subject is classified as imponderable, this does not mean we should not take an interest in it. We can engage with this subject according to our limited understanding and gain confidence from such understanding. We are able to contemplate those things that lie within the field of our discernment, i.e., those things existing in the present moment, beginning with minor matters and extending to more significant, far-reaching ones. We can observe the effects of our thoughts and intentions. How do wholesome thoughts lead to positive results in our lives, and vice versa? How do unwholesome thoughts generate negative results and cause damage? How do these effects have wider consequences for other people, the society, and the world? And how do they rebound on our own lives? One begins to understand the complexity and subtlety of this multifaceted causal process, going beyond one's initial assumptions, and one then gains a confidence in the causality inherent in nature. An understanding of minor short-term effects leads to an understanding of how things unfold in the long term. Indeed, the long-term effects descend from and consist of the short-term effects. The long-term effects could not exist were it not for the short-term effects. Here an understanding arises in line with the truth. A confidence in the natural causal process involving intention is precisely a confidence and trust in the law of Kamma. When one possesses trust in the law of Kamma, whenever one desires particular results, one expects these to occur by way of intentional actions. One then proceeds to act in conformity with causes and conditions, with a thorough understanding of the factors involved. If one wishes for positive effects, both in respect to the law of Kamma and in respect to worldly things, Longterm, one makes a complete analysis of the various factors involved and then carefully generates the necessary conditions for these things to arise. This analysis is not restricted to a person's internal conceptual activity. It applies also to external creative activity. People skilled at inventing or creating things do not only focus on the content of their own conceptualizations and intentions. They also take into account relevant factors from other laws, niyama. For example, an architect uses artistic, creative refinement to design a beautiful wooden house. When she uses this design to build a real house, she needs to consider what kinds of hardwoods and softwoods are required for different parts of the house. No matter how beautiful the design, if she uses conifer wood where hardwood is required, the house may collapse and her project may fail. Another architect may have a beautiful design but use unattractive building materials and thus fail in his pursuit. Similarly, if a fashion designer gets caught up in his own exquisite mental designs without taking into consideration the climate of the country in question, say by producing beautiful clothes suitable for a cold climate but selling them in a hot climate, he too will fail in his endeavours. Similarly, those people who are engineers or artisans designing a wholesome way of life should be prudent in relating to causes and conditions in the context of benefiting from the law of Kamma and ensuring that one progresses in a wholesome direction. It is necessary to establish a love of goodness, kusala chanda, or a love of truth, Dhamma chanda. In spiritual training, people should be encouraged to cultivate such an aspiration and love for truth and goodness, say by wishing for one's life to be pure and virtuous, desiring a virtuous society, wishing for all those things one engages with to exist in a state of excellence and integrity, or for them to reach an optimal state, and wishing for the truth to pervade in all directions. As long as people fail to have a love of truth and goodness, and are simply infatuated by the delightful things in the world, they will try to fool about with the law of Kamma, or to deceive the laws of nature. In fact, they are unable to deceive the laws of nature, rather they end up deceiving themselves. As a consequence, they create an endless amount of harm to themselves, to society, and to the human race.